The truck smells of wet canvas and diesel. Jack Turner sits wedged between two other American prisoners as the vehicle rattles south toward Frankfurt. Every bump in the road sends a dull ache through his shoulders where the parachute harness had snapped him open. No one speaks at first. Silence feels safer. Hours pass. The winter light fades behind the canvas flaps. By the time they arrive at Dulag Luft, night has settled over the compound. Barbed wire fences glint under floodlights. Guard towers loom against a pale sky. The place is efficient, not theatrical. This is not a frontline prison. It is a machine designed for information. Turner is separated from Miller at the intake desk. Personal items are cataloged. His dog tags are examined but returned. Name, rank, serial number. He repeats them evenly. They place him alone in a small, heated room. A wooden chair, a table, a single bulb overhead, too comfortable to be accidental. After several minutes, the door opens. A Luftwaffe officer enters, captain's bars on his shoulder boards, flight badge above his breast pocket. His English is precise, almost academic. Staff Sergeant Turner, he says, sitting across from him. You flew from England this morning. Turner says nothing. The officer folds his gloves neatly on the table. Two aircraft collided. Very unusual. We have witnesses. Turner keeps his eyes steady. We are not interested in secrets tonight, the officer continues calmly. Only facts. How did the lower aircraft maintain control? It is not a question about bombs or routes. It is professional curiosity. Pilot to airman. Turner answers as trained. Name, rank, serial number. The officer studies him. Not anger. Something like reluctant respect. You Americans are stubborn, he says quietly. The pilot of the second aircraft, he survived the landing. Badly injured. He asked about your crew. Turner's heartbeat quickens, but his face does not change. He insisted. The officer continues. That your pilot increased power to help him separate. Turner remembers the moment. The sudden shift in pressure. The violent tear. The choice made in a cockpit filled with fire and fear. He says nothing. The officer stands. War is strange, he says softly. Sometimes enemies cooperate without speaking. He pauses at the door. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we try again. When the door closes, the silence feels heavier than before. Turner leans back in the chair. He thinks of the pilot in the ambulance, of the bombardier trapped upside down in freezing air, of the tail gunner who never answered. Two bombers became one for a few impossible minutes over Germany, not by design, not by heroics meant for headlines, but by men holding controls steady when every instinct screamed to abandon them. Outside his small window, the searchlight sweeps slowly across the winter sky, the same sky that held them both, and somewhere in the compound infirmary. Morning comes quietly at Dulag Luft. Frost clings to the inside of the barracks window when Jack Turner wakes on a narrow cot. For a moment, he forgets where he is. Then he hears the distant clang of a gate and the sharp bark of German commands. Memory returns in fragments: collision, fire, parachute silk snapping open. And the pilot. After roll call, Turner is marched across the compound yard. Gravel crunches beneath boots in disciplined rhythm. The air smells of coal smoke and disinfectant. Instead of interrogation, they lead him toward a low brick building marked with a red cross. The infirmary. A guard opens the door. Inside, the room is quiet except for the slow ticking of a wall clock. Beds line both sides, some occupied by Allied airmen, others by German ground crew injured in unrelated accidents. War does not sort its wounded by allegiance. At the far end, propped up against pillows, sits the pilot of Barrelhouse Queen. His face is pale beneath bruises. A bandage wraps his forehead. His left arm is in a sling, but his eyes are clear. The guard gestures for Turner to step closer. For a moment, neither man speaks. They recognize each other not by name, but by shared altitude. You're from the Bell, the pilot says finally. His voice is rough but steady. Turner nods. Waist gunner. A faint smile touches the pilot's mouth. Figured. You boys held her steady. Turner shakes his head slightly. You pushed us up when we were dropping. The pilot exhales slowly, as if replaying it. Didn't want to take you with us. It is said simply. No drama. Just fact. Turner studies him. Why didn't you bail? The pilot looks toward the window, where pale sunlight filters through frosted glass. My bombardier was pinned. If I rolled her, he was done. A silence stretches between them. Both men understand what that means. Footsteps approach. The Luftwaffe captain from the night before stands near the doorway, observing quietly, not interrupting, just listening. The pilot turns back to Turner. Name's Lieutenant Harris, he says. Next time, try not to ram me. Turner almost laughs. It catches in his throat instead. There won't be a next time, he says. Harris nods. He knows that too. The guard signals that the visit is over. Turner steps back. As he reaches the door, Harris calls after him. "We stayed in the air," he says. "That's something." Turner pauses, looks back once. "Yes, sir," he answers quietly. "It is." Outside, the winter sky stretches cold and empty above the wire. Two bombers had become one over Germany. Now two airmen sit behind fences on the same side of captivity, alive because neither man chose the easy escape. At 12,000 feet, and somewhere beyond the compound, the war continues to climb into that same sky. February 1944. Snow presses low against the barbed wire of Stalag Luft 3. The wind cuts across the compound in long, merciless sweeps, rattling the wooden barracks like thin bones. Staff Sergeant Jack Turner stands in line for morning roll call, boots sunk slightly into packed frost. Around him, hundreds of Allied airmen stand in silence. Americans, British, Canadians, faces hollowed by winter, eyes still sharp. Across the yard, in another formation, Lieutenant Harris stands with his arm healed enough to move, though the sling is gone. A faint scar runs across his temple where plexiglass once shattered. They do not speak during roll. They don't need to. News travels fast in a prison camp, stories even faster. The tale of TB-17s, fused together at 20,000 feet, has grown in retelling. Some say they locked wingtip to wingtip. Others swear they flew miles that way, engines roaring in defiance. Turner never corrects them. The truth is strange enough. After roll call, Turner returns to Barracks 104. Inside, the stove burns low. Men cluster around a crude wooden table, sketching aircraft silhouettes from memory, planning escape routes that may never be used, keeping minds sharp. Harris steps inside quietly. The room stills for a moment. Rank means little here. Survival means more. He nods at Turner. "Mind if I join you?" Turner gestures to an empty crate. They sit side by side, not as pilot and gunner now, but as prisoners with the same horizon of wire. "You ever think about it?" Harris asks softly. "Every night," Turner replies. Harris stares into the stove's small flame. "If I'd cut power sooner, we both might have gone down cleaner." Turner shakes his head. "If you'd cut power sooner, we'd have split apart at 15,000 feet, both spinning. No chutes." Harris considers that, nods once. Outside, a German guard walks past the window, rifle slung casually. The war feels distant here, muted to paperwork and rations. But beyond these fences, bombers still climb from England every morning. Engines still roar toward the Reich. Two aircraft became one for a few impossible minutes. Not because of strategy, not because of orders, because in the thin air above Germany, two crews chose not to abandon each other to gravity. Turner steps outside as afternoon light fades. He looks up at the pale sky. Empty, but he can still hear it, the grinding metal, the engines straining together. The moment when separation meant survival. Behind him, Harris joins him at the wire. "We'll fly again," Harris says quietly. Turner doesn't answer right away. He watches a lone cloud drift east. "Yeah," he says finally. "We will." Above the frozen camp, the sky remains vast and indifferent. But somewhere, in its endless gray, the memory of two bombers refusing to fall alone still hangs, proof that even in war, survival can be shared. Northern France, May 21, 1940. The sky hangs low over Arras, thick with smoke and drifting ash. Captain Edward Markham of the 4th Royal Tank Regiment stands half exposed from the open hatch of his Matilda II infantry tank. His black beret sits tight against his head, silver RTR badge dull beneath soot. The engine beneath him growls like a living thing, hot oil and diesel fumes rising in waves. He is 29, a schoolteacher from Kent. Now, he commands 12 men, sealed inside 30 tons of British steel. Across the fields, German armor advances in clean, sharp lines. Panzers move fast to fast. Markham watches through Zeiss binoculars taken from a dead officer days earlier. He sees Panzer I's and I's fanning out, infantry riding on trucks behind them. The Blitzkrieg has torn through Belgium. It was supposed to crush France in weeks, but today, the British are not running. "Driver, advance at 10, Markham says calmly into the speaking tube. Inside the tank, the crew moves with rehearsed precision. The Matilda lurches forward, thick armor plates grinding through churned mud. Unlike the lighter British cruisers, this tank is slow, but its armor is monstrous. 78 millimeters at the front. German anti-tank guns have struggled against it before. Ahead, a German 37 millimeters pack gun snaps into position. Markham sees the muzzle flash first. The shell slams into the Matilda's hull with a metallic crack. The entire vehicle shudders. Dust falls from the interior ceiling. The crew freezes for half a second. "Report," Markham demands. "No penetration, sir." The gunner shouts back, stunned. Another hit, then another. The The rounds spark and ricochet. German gunners fire again and again, disbelief spreading along their line. The Matilda keeps moving, slow, unstoppable. Markham feels at the shift. The enemy expected panic. Instead, they face a tank their standard guns cannot easily kill. Target that pack, he orders. The Matilda's 2-pounder cannon fires. The recoil slams through the hull. The German gun position explodes in splinters and smoke. Through his binoculars, Markham sees something rare. German crews abandoning their positions. For the first time since the invasion began, British steel pushes forward, not back. But then he notices something else. Beyond the burning gun line, a staff car speeds away from the rear. An officer inside shouts into a field telephone, gesturing wildly toward the British tanks. Markham lowers the binoculars. He does not know the officer's name, but that man is already reporting to higher command. And somewhere behind the German lines, senior commanders are about to hear of a British weapon so simple, just thick armor and steady nerve that their standard tactics are failing. The Matilda keeps advancing, and the Germans are beginning to panic. The German gun crews stare in disbelief. The 3.7 centimeters Pak 36, the weapon they mockingly call the door knocker, has stopped. Polished tanks, French armor, Belgian resistance. It is light, mobile, efficient. German doctrine depends on it. But today, the shells bounce. Captain Edward Markham feels each impact through the solace of his boots. The Matilda grinds forward at 8 miles per hour, methodical, deliberate. He keeps his voice even. Traverse right, infantry forming along the hedgerow. Inside the hull, Corporal Hughes swings the 2-pounder slowly. The tank's turret motor whines under strain. The gun fires again. A German machine gun nest vanishes in a cloud of dirt and shattered timber. Outside, British infantry from the Durham Light Infantry push behind the tanks, khaki battledress streaked with mud. Bren gunners advance in short bursts. For once, the Germans are the ones scrambling for cover. Markham sees a Panzer III attempt to flank on the left. Its commander stands exposed in his cupola, binoculars raised, confident, aggressive. Panzer, 11 o'clock, armor-piercing. The Matilda fires. The German tank jerks violently. Smoke spills from its turret ring. The Panzer reverses, disappearing behind a farmhouse. But Markham notices something troubling. The German line is not collapsing, it is bending. Through drifting smoke, he sees field gray officers directing traffic with urgent precision. Motorcycles roar rearward. Signal flags snap in the wind. This is not chaos. This is adaptation. Inside one of those staff cars racing north sits Oberstleutnant Erwin Rommel, commander of the 7th Panzer Division. He watches through field glasses as British heavy tanks punch holes through his forward screen. His jaw tightens. Bring up the 8 south, he orders. Those words travel down the line like a spark along a fuse. The 88mm Flak gun is not meant for tanks. It is an anti-aircraft weapon, long-barreled, powerful, precise. But its high-velocity shell can tear through armor at distance. German crews scramble to reposition them horizontally. Back in his Matilda, Markham wipes sweat from his brow despite the cool May air. The tank's engine temperature is rising. Ammunition count is dropping. How many rounds left? He asks. 17 armor-piercing, sir. 17. Ahead, the fields open wide. No hedgerows, no cover. Then he sees it. Far on the ridge, a long, unmistakable barrel lowering toward them. It does not look like the small pack guns. It looks heavier, slower, deliberate. Markham feels a flicker of unease he refuses to show. Driver, halt. Gunner, identify that piece. The German crew works calmly around the massive weapon. There is no panic in their movement now, only calculation. The 88mm fires. The sound is different, deeper, violent, like the sky itself tearing open. And this time, the shell does not ricochet. It punches clean through the Matilda's side armor. Inside the tank, everything turns white. The world inside the Matilda becomes fire and pressure. Captain Edward Markham is thrown backward into the turret wall. The metallic scream of torn steel fills the compartment. A sheet of white-hot fragments rips through the fighting compartment, shredding wiring, punching through ammunition racks. For a split second, there is no sound, only a high ringing in his ears. Then the screaming begins. Corporal Hughes collapses beside the gun breech, blood soaking into his black overalls. The loader is slumped forward, unmoving. The engine sputters violently, coughing smoke into the compartment. Driver, Markham shouts, though his voice sounds distant to his own ears. No response. The tank is still. Through the side plate, the jagged hole leaks daylight and smoke. The 88mm shell has passed straight through, punching in one side and out the other. The simple strength of British armor has met something stronger. Markham forces himself upright. The air inside is choking, burning insulation. Hot all, cordite. He feels heat climbing fast. Evacuate, he orders, grabbing Hughes by the collar. Outside, German observers watch through binoculars. The great British tank that seemed invulnerable minutes ago now smolders in the open field. Another 88mm round lands nearby, kicking up soil like a black fountain. Markham pushes Hughes toward the hatch. Flames lick along the ammunition rack. If the stored rounds cook off, the turret will become a coffin. He climbs out into the harsh daylight, dragging Hughes behind him. The open field offers no cover. Bullets begin snapping through the air as German infantry advance cautiously. Markham drops flat, pulling Hughes into a shallow depression in the earth. "Stay with me," he mutters. Hughes' breathing is ragged, eyes unfocused. Behind them, the Matilda erupts. A secondary explosion blows the turret hatch clean open, smoke billowing into the gray sky. Other British tanks nearby are slowing. Some attempt to reverse. Others pivot, unsure whether to advance or withdraw. The illusion is broken. The German 88s fire again, measured, clinical. Across the ridge, Oberstleutnant Rommel watches the British momentum stall. He lowers his field glasses, expression unreadable. "They can be destroyed," he says quietly. Word spreads quickly through German ranks. The British heavy tanks are not invincible. They require only the right weapon. But for Markham, lying in churned French soil, this revelation is personal. He looks back at his burning tank, the weapon that terrified German commanders for a brief, critical hour. Simple armor, steady advance, discipline. It nearly changed the day. Now German infantry are closing in, rifles leveled. Hughes cannot run. Markham checks his Webley revolver. 6 rounds. He could fight. He could die here. Or, a German voice shouts in accented English. "Han Hock, hands up." Markham lifts his head slowly. The rifles are steady. Close, very close. Captain Edward Markham raises his hand slowly. The revolver feels heavy in his grip. Useless now. He lets it fall into the mud. German infantry approach in a tight skirmish line, rifles steady, bayonets fixed. Their field gray uniforms are dusted white from chalk soil. One soldier, young, freckles beneath the rim of his Stahlhelm, keeps his finger tense on the trigger. "Han Hock," the young German repeats, voice cracking. Markham keeps his movements deliberate. He eases Hughes down gently, hands visible. "He's wounded," Markham says evenly. The German soldiers exchange glances. They expected monsters inside those steel beasts. Instead they find a bleeding corporal and a soot-streaked officer in a black beret. A Feldwebel steps forward, older, calm. He kicks the Webley away with his boot and signals for a medic. The British counterattack around Arras is faltering now. Smoke columns rise where Matildas once pushed forward. Some still fight, but the open ground belongs to the 88s. Markham watches as stretcher-bearers carry Hughes away carefully, not roughly. War is brutal, but procedure remains. He is searched quickly. Map case removed. Compass taken. His shoulder flashes. Royal Tank Regiment. Draw. Quiet murmurs. One German soldier stares at him. "You thought we could not stop them," the man says in rough English, nodding toward the burning tanks. Markham meets his eyes. "For a while. You couldn't." The soldier says nothing. He does not disagree. They march Markham rearward across the scarred field. The smell of churned earth mixes with oil and blood. Overhead, Stuka dive bombers howl toward other sectors, their sirens shrieking like mechanical predators. As they crest the ridge, Markham sees them up close. The 88mm guns, long barrels, angular shields, crews working with professional precision. The weapons look almost delicate compared to the heavy British tanks they just destroyed, but their reach is undeniable. He understands now. The Matilda's simplicity, thick armor, steady advance forced the Germans to improvise. It terrified them long enough to change their tactics. But adaptation in war is swift. A reminder no weapon stays supreme. Markham is brought to a temporary holding area near a farmhouse courtyard. Several British prisoners sit under guard infantrymen. Dazed tank crewmen, one officer clutching a bandaged arm. A German staff car pulls in. An officer steps out, lean, sharp features, eyes alert. His black boots are spotless despite the mud. Rommel surveys the prisoners briefly, then the distant battlefield. His gaze pauses on Markham's black beret. For a moment, the two men look at each other. No words, just calculation. Then Rommel turns away, already issuing new orders. The British counterattack has shaken his division more than he will admit publicly. Markham lowers his eyes as guards motion for him to sit. The battle is not over, but for him, the war has just changed. Behind them, the 88s fire again. Evening settles over Arras in a haze of smoke and fading light. Captain Edward Markham sits against the cold stone wall of the farmhouse courtyard, hands resting on his knees. Around him, British prisoners speak in low, stunned voices. Some stare blankly. Others whisper rumors. We nearly broke them. Rommel himself was there. The Matilda's frightened the hell out of them. Markham says nothing. Across the yard, German soldiers move with renewed confidence. The panic of the afternoon is gone. In its place, methodical efficiency. Radios crackle. Motorcycles depart in spurts of engine noise. Orders are rewritten. The counterattack at Arras forced the Germans to pause, to rethink, and that pause, brief as it was, will ripple upward through command. A Feldwebel approaches with a clipboard. Prisoners are counted, searched again. Markham's paybook is flipped through, his name recorded carefully. Captain, the Feldwebel asks. Captain, Markham corrects quietly. The German nods once, unimpressed. Beyond the courtyard gate, a convoy forms. Trucks for prisoners, ambulances for wounded, artillery tractors hauling the long silhouettes of 88mm guns toward new positions. Markham watches them closely. This is how wars are decided, not by one weapon alone, but by how quickly men learn to counter it. As darkness thickens, the prisoners are ordered to their feet. They are marched toward waiting transport under armed guard. The road north is crowded with German supply columns moving forward, fuel trucks, panzer repair units, staff vehicles. Blitzkrieg resumes its rhythm. Inside the back of a covered truck, Markham sits shoulder to shoulder with infantrymen. The air smells of sweat and damp wool. A small lantern swings overhead with every bump in the road. Opposite him sits a young private from Durham, barely 20. His hands shake slightly. Sir, the private whispers, were they scared of our tanks? Markham considers the question. For a time, he answers. The private nods as if that matters. Outside, distant artillery flashes light the horizon. France is collapsing faster than anyone predicted. The British Expeditionary Force is already falling back toward the Channel. The truck halts abruptly. German voices exchange sharp commands. The rear flap is pulled open. They are being transferred. Ahead lies a rail yard, dim lamps, freight cars waiting on silent tracks. Prisoners are herded into groups, wounded separated, officers counted again. Markham steps down onto gravel and scans the platform. He notices something unexpected. Among the German administrative staff overseeing the transfers are several women uniformed auxiliaries, typing orders at portable desks, coordinating prisoner lists with precise efficiency. They glance up as British officers pass. One of them locks eyes briefly with Markham. Her expression is not cruel. It is unsettled, as if what she witnessed today has shaken more than just the battlefield. A whistle blows sharply. The train doors slide open. The freight car door slams shut with a hollow, final sound. Darkness swallows them. Captain Edward Markham stands braced as the train jolts forward. 40 men crowd the wooden boxcar, officers, tank crewmen, infantry. The only light seeps through narrow slats high in the walls. The air grows stale within minutes. No one knows the destination. The rhythm of steel wheels on track becomes the only constant. Hours pass, or perhaps only one. Time stretches inside captivity. Markham leans against the rough timber wall, replaying the battlefield in his mind, the Matilda's steady advance, the first ricochets, the sudden violence of the 88mm. He forces himself to analyze, not mourn. The Germans adapted quickly. That is the lesson. Across from him, the young Durham private sits with knees drawn up. They'll keep us in France, sure? He asked quietly. Markham does not lie. Unlikely. The train slows near dawn. Through the slats, Markham sees countryside rolling past villages untouched by war. Farmers standing still as the prisoner train rattles through. Some remove their caps briefly. Others simply watch. By midday, they cross into Belgium. Guards shout commands outside. No one is allowed out. Late afternoon, the train halts longer. The door scrapes open. Harsh light floods in. Raus, schnell. They stumble onto a platform in a larger rail junction Aachen, near the German border. Armed Wehrmacht soldiers line the edges. Machine guns positioned casually but deliberately. Markham inhales sharply. Germany. Prisoners are divided by rank. Officers to one side, other ranks to another. As Markham steps into line with fellow officers, he notices again the presence of uniformed German women Wehrmacht auxiliaries, Nachrichtenfelfen signals clerks and administrative staff. Gray skirts, field blouses, hair pinned tightly beneath caps. They process paperwork efficiently, stamping documents, assigning temporary numbers. One young auxiliary hesitates as she writes Markham's name from his paybook. Mark. Ham. She attempts softly in accented English. Yes, he replies evenly. She nods, but her eyes linger for a second too long. These women are not frontline soldiers. Yet today they witness something unusual. Reports have already circulated through headquarters the British heavy tanks that defied standard -1 tank fire. The rumor spreads fast. English armor that bullets could not stop. Shock travels even through offices and typing rooms. A senior German officer approaches the processing table. His tone is clipped. Ensure these officers are separated. They will be interrogated. Markham hears it clearly. Separated. As dusk falls, officers are marched toward waiting trucks distinct from the others. The Durham private catches Markham's eye from the other column. Sir? Markham nods once. Hold steady. The trucks pull away toward an uncertain destination deeper inside Germany. Behind them, the rail yard empties. Ahead, questions await. The truck ride is short but silent. Captain Edward Markham sits rigid on the wooden bench, wrists resting on his knees, eyes fixed forward. 6 British officers share the covered transport. No one speaks. The only sound is the grind of gears and the distant hum of evening traffic in a German town untouched by bombing. They stop before a stone administrative building, former customs offices near the border, now commandeered by the Wehrmacht. Inside, electric lights glow harsh and white. Markham is escorted down a narrow corridor that smells of ink and damp paper. Doors line both sides. Typewriters clatter somewhere beyond. He is shown into a small interrogation room. 1 table, 2 chairs, a single overhead lamp. A German captain enters moments later. Crisp uniform, iron cross pinned neatly. He carries a folder already prepared. Captain Edward Markham, Royal Tank Regiment, the German says in fluent English. Markham remains standing until ordered to sit. You commanded one of the heavy tanks at Arras. I commanded a tank, Markham replies evenly. The German captain opens the folder. Photographs spill onto the table, burning Matildas. German pack guns abandoned. Infantry retreating. You surprised our forward elements, the officer admits calmly. Your armor resisted our 3.7 centimeters guns. Markham says nothing. The German leans back slightly. Your design is simple, thick armor, slow advance, no complicated maneuvers. That simplicity, he continues, caused unnecessary alarm among our commanders. Markham senses it now. Not anger, concern. For a brief window, German units believed they faced an armored breakthrough beyond their ability to counter. Panic traveled up the chain faster than artillery shells. Was Arras the beginning of a larger offensive? The German asks. No. Markham answers truthfully. The officer studies him for a long moment, weighing tone, posture, restraint. Outside the door, boots pass along the corridor. A faint female voice speaks sharply in German, administrative, efficient. The German captain gathers the photographs. Our 88mm guns corrected the situation, he says. You must understand war favors adaptation. Markham meets his eyes. For now, the words hang between them. The officer stands. You will be transferred to an officer camp in due time. Until then, you will remain here. As Markham is escorted out, he passes a side office where several female auxiliaries work late beneath desk lamps. One of them, the same young clerk from the rail yard, glances up again. Her gaze is unsettled, not by him personally, by what she has heard. British tanks that shrug off German fire. Panic in the ranks. Emergency calls for 88mm guns to be turned against ground targets. The myth of invincibility cracked if only for hours. Markham is placed in a holding cell, iron door clanging shut behind him. He sits alone on a narrow cot. Through the small barred window, he sees searchlights sweeping the night sky. The war continues without him.